This is the most common way that we use to write some data to our file. The steps are pretty simple. We open the file and then we write some data to it. And I'm hoping that after watching this video, you will stop using this method. So before we understand the problem with this, let's try to understand what this code does, and then we will understand the problem. So here I have a file whose name is test file, and I have some data that I want to write. So let's understand what is the content of our file, which is test file. So here is my file. It has some old data. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply run this code and see what happens. So code ran, and let's verify that this file now has this data. As you can see, now we have this new data. So everything is working fine. What is the issue with this code? So let's try to understand where things could go wrong. So we have just 2 lines of code that is of importance to us. The first one is where we open the file in write mode, and the second one is where we write the file. So there are a lot of things that could go wrong after we have opened the file and then we start to write in it. One of the few things that could go wrong is the data type. For example, this write function only accepts string data type. So if we were to add some integer value, this will throw an error. The second problem, let's say after we open the file, for some reason our program crashed, either our server shut down, or if we are hosting this code in some sort of IoT device, then IoT device turned off, and lot more things that could go wrong. So let's try to understand the problem with this when something goes wrong. So to simulate an issue, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply raise an exception here. And now let's run this file and see what happens. So before we run this, we'll first verify the contents of this file. So as you can see, the contents is this new data that we wanted to write. And now let's run this. As expected, we have an exception, but let's try to see what happened to our file. So we will open this file. So as you can see, the file is empty. Let's try to understand why the file was empty when we had some sort of exception. So the answer lies here. So this function open, if you look at the documentation, we have this mode and we have different options for this mode. So the mode that we were using was W, and here what it does is it opens the file and it immediately truncates the file, which means the moment this line is executed, this file, if it exists, will be emptied. It won't have any content. And therefore, if we have some exception in between, we opened the file and we wanted to write something to it, we will lose all our previous data, and this is the issue. For a simple example like this, it won't make much sense that, okay, we lost our data, because we always have this data and we could have written this data back to file anytime we want. So let's look at a slightly different example where the previous data matters to us. Let's look at a file that I have and let's try to understand the problem. So here I have this file. It has some user information, some sort of configuration, and we have fields like user, age, and settings. So let's say we want to update only this field, which is age. And what will happen when we are trying to update this file, like we have opened this file for writing and in between something happened, again the program crashed or some exception occurred. So in that case, all of this data will be lost, and this is a problem for us. So let's quickly look at an example of how we would normally update this file. Here I have a simple piece of code. What it does is it reads this YAML file and then it updates a field inside this YAML file, which is age. To do that, we first read from the file, we convert the YAML to a dict, and then we update the age field inside the dictionary, and then we again write back to this same file. So when we read from the YAML file, this is how the data looks like. So here we want to update this age field, and whenever we use this update method, what it does is it merges this dictionary and this dictionary. So here the field age is common, so therefore it is going to just update this age field. Or we could have done something simpler like this. Both are equivalent. So I'm going to remove this, don't need it. And again, to simulate an exception, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to raise an exception here. And now let's run this file and see what happens. So as expected, we have an exception, but this time, apart from exception, if we go to our data, it's empty. And this is the problem. When we wanted to update this file and we had some sort of an error, exception, anything, we lost our previous data, and this is really problematic for us. So how do we fix it? The answer is simple. So instead of writing back to the original file directly, what we do is we write to a temporary file, and then after the write is successful, then we replace the temporary file with the original file. In this way, it handles the situation where we had some issue while writing and our file was emptied out because we were writing in a temporary file. That means our original file is still there. It still has the old data. Before we look at the solution, let's repopulate this file with our previous data. So I have saved it here. I'm just going to copy it and add it. Now let's look at the updated code where we are using this method of writing first to a temporary file and then replacing the temporary file with the original file. So here is the code. This code is almost identical except for a few changes. So here, apart from the file where we want to write or where we want to update the data, I also have an additional file whose name is the same one as previously with .tmp extension, which indicates that, okay, I'm using a temporary file. And again, I have the same information. I'm doing the same thing. I'm opening the file, reading the data, and then I'm updating the age parameter. Same as before, I'm again opening this file, but now in write mode, and I'm again simulating an exception by simply raising exception here. And then we have this YAML.dump, which actually writes back to the file. So once we have returned to temporary file, then what we do is we use this replace method. What it does is it replaces the temporary file with our original file. So if we have some sort of exception here, this code is not going to run, and that means our original file will be still there with our original data. So to verify that, we'll first again go back to our data.yaml file. We can see we have this data. We have user Bob and age is 40. Now let's run this file and see what happens. Again, as expected, we have an exception, but this time if we go back to our original file, you can see all the data is here. We didn't lose our previous data. So let's quickly look at what happens when we don't have an exception. I'll just comment this out and I'm going to rerun this. So this time it ran successfully, and I can see that my data.yaml does have some updated field, which is 50. Just the ordering of the fields are different, but the actual data is still the same. So this is how you write atomically to a file. Hope this video was helpful for you. If you learned something new, please make sure to comment in the video, and if you have any doubts, I'd love to hear them in comments.